Let's remember together some of the greatest TV and movie stars of yesteryear with the woman who knew them. Mary Jane Popp hosted radio and TV shows for nearly 5 decades, meeting these stars and getting them to share their real-life stories. You'll meet them up close and personal as Mary Jane searches her extensive archives for the best and brightest real star talk on Pop Star Talk. And here she is, Mary Jane Popp.
It's that time again to go back in time with Pop Star Talk with my producer and good friend, Kenneth Sigorno. And this edition takes us to a dynamo gal, that's all I can say, who has actually done it all. Now, you may not recognize the name immediately, Ruta Lee, but when you hear her credits and see her face, you will remember some memorable characters that she played. Ken, I know you know who Ruta Lee is.
You know, I don't know that much about her. So I'm going to be a fan.
Fly on the wall?
Fly on the wall. But there's a term, Ruta Lee, when people describe dancing. And now I know what it means and where it came from.
Yeah, well, she was a dancer. She was on stage. She did tons of movies. She was in Billy Wilder's crime drama Witness for the Persecution and Stanley Donen's musical comedy Funny Face. She was in the sci-fi series The Twilight Zone called A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain. Just some good stuff that she did. But she did a lot of the like Hollywood Stars, Squares, What's My Line, Match Game. And she was also with Alex Trebek as co-host on High Rollers. That was, of course, before Jeopardy, etc. She's up there. She turned 90 this year, but she's still going strong. I mean, this lady does not give up. She has a Lithuanian background. And this is so funny because there's so much more to Ruta Lee with her high energy and stick-to-it attitude when she set her mind to getting a job done. And wait till you hear her dynamic encounter with, are you ready for this one? Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev. Oh, this lady worked with Frank Sinatra, Clint Eastwood, Lucille Ball, Sally Field, Robin Williams. My gosh, I could go on and on and on, but it'll take up all the time just telling you. And back in the 1970s, she hosted the game show High Rollers with the iconic Jeopardy host Alex Trebek, and they really became good friends after that. And talk about iconic. She is Ruta Lee, a dynamic lady and her long career on stage and screen. And she's just a dynamo who made international headlines. Are you ready for this? When she had an encounter with, what was the Soviet Union at the time, Nikita Khrushchev from the Soviet Union, of course. Now, Ruta shares so much more in her memoir, and I love the name of the book. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Consider Your Ass Kicked. And she did. Nice to have you with us, Ruta.
So happy that you gave me that eulogy.
No.
Would you mind repeating it when the time comes?
Yeah, absolutely, and a whole lot more. I'm sure you don't remember, but many moons ago, I interviewed you, and oh my gosh, I was so impressed because you were just so honest and straightforward. It came from your gut, from your heart, from your soul. It wasn't one of those, well, I'm just a little mealy-mouthed actress. No way, you've never been that.
Well, my darling, the same applies to you.
Oh.
We came from the same cabbage patch, I think, because we both have the same attitude about you live it, you see it, you love it, you share it, and you're having the opportunity of doing this with an audience every day.
Yes.
And I think that is so rewarding.
Everybody keeps asking me, when am I going to retire? I say, when I die. I love what I'm doing. And I get to talk to people like Ruta Lee and other people who make our lives better. And we need that so much because, man, have we got a lot of turmoil and chaos going on now.
Well, I'm hoping that Consider Your Ass Kissed, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say it. It's been a loving expression of gratitude to those people in my life that have helped me or certainly have helped my charity, the Thalians, which is, mental health for returning veterans now.
Yeah.
I've used it constantly as an expression. And years ago, George Pinocchio, who is the red carpet man for ABC television here in Hollywood, said, Ruta, if you ever write a book, that should be the title of your book, because it is meant with love and affection to everybody. And so I always say, if anybody is going to be prudish about your ass being kissed, just remember that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on his ass. Well, I can kiss it.
I love you. I really do. Don't get me wrong. I am a very respectful person. I respect anybody else's ideas. I will argue with you if you want me to. We'll go toe to toe. But I respect your opinion. Maybe we can just agree to disagree. But why have we gone so far to the point that anytime you open your mouth, someone's going to find something wrong with it?
Well, I wish somebody could explain it to me. I think we have to stop pussyfooting around.
Thank you.
Comics no longer have any kind of comedy. You don't dare go against anybody who's Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, Mohammedan, whatever you are, or whatever flavor you are, whether you're German or Lithuanian or Polish or Russian or Armenian. Where are the jokes? We can't. We're going to insult each other.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the point of humor? Was to be able to laugh stuff off rather than take it all to heart and mark it and go pitch your rocks into glass windows and burn buildings? Nonsense.
Remember the roasts in San Francisco with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all the biggies? I mean, those roasts, they couldn't even put them on the air anymore.
Well, of course they couldn't. And of course the whole point was a certain amount of insult with great fun.
Yes. And everybody took it that way. They didn't take it as an insult.
Such offense now is taken by everything and anybody. Oh.
It's sad. It really is sad. You're doing okay, too, now with the COVID thing, I hope?
I'm doing very well with the COVID thing because, first of all, I live in a wonderful big property in Southern California, and I can run to my little house in Palm Springs. And when I can fly, I've got a place in Texas, and then I've also got a wonderful little place down in Mexico. So, in other words, I sleep around.
Okay.
I sleep around.
In a healthy way, right?
Yes, but the problem with all those houses is that I never know where I need sugar and where I need toilet paper.
Yeah.
Never know.
The sugar, forget it. Don't worry about it. The toilet paper, you got to worry about. So, now, tell me about this thing with Nikita Khrushchev. I'm fascinated.
Oh, my dear. Then you're too young to remember, probably. But back in 1964, it was.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I had been writing and trying to get my grandmother, my one remaining grandparent at that point, out of first Siberia, where she was, and then she was allowed after a certain amount of time in Siberia. Mind you, we're not talking about the cognoscenti, the sophisticated people, who are highly educated, or the teachers or painters. These are farm folk.
Yeah.
The richest thing they had was a cow they could milk. That was incredible. And they were rounded up and deported to Siberia.
Yeah.
My grandfather's legs were frozen on the train that they were being, sent out on. And when they took off the boots, they took off the flesh. A gangrene, he died.
Oh.
This was happening when they were trying to repatriate all those smaller countries, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, all the way around Russia. And the Soviet Union heel was stamping down, and they were going to repatriate with Russians or with Chinese or with something. Anyway, I wanted to get my one remaining grandparent out of Lithuania. We thought she was dying. She was told that she was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And she never learned to read and write. She never got anywhere in school, maybe the third grade. And so they were writing letters, thanking us for everything that we had sent that kept them alive. And I went out with friends in a spate of tears, and the more wine they poured, the more obvious it became that I should do something outrageous. And what was it but pick up the phone and call Khrushchev?
Oh, good for you.
So I did.
Did you get him?
Well, if you will remember, child, that we used to have person-to-person calls.
Oh.
You paid twice as much for the call, but if you didn't get it, you didn't pay anything.
Gotcha.
And so I placed person-to-person calls to Nikita Khrushchev, the Kremlin, Moscow, USSR. And the American operator said, "How do you spell Khrushchev?" Well, who the hell knew how? You know, with the h and the c's. Anyway, long story short, after about 5 or 6 go back and forths between the Russian operators and the American operators, etc., finally the Russian operator gets back and she said, "Mr. Khrushchev, no speak it English. You speak it with his interpreter." And I remembered that he traveled with a very handsome young man when he was banging a shoe on the podium.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
the handsome young man would translate his rather rough and tough language and make it palatable for our Victorian American ears. And my father used to laugh because he was fluent in Russian.
Oh.
And he'd say, "Khrushchev didn't say that." And so I spoke with the interpreter, and he said, "Oh, Miss Lee, we think you're so wonderful. We see your movies here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And what can I do for you?" And I said, "I want to bring my mother and father back to Lithuania. I want to get into Lithuania." You couldn't get into any of those countries unless you were a big muck-a-muck in the Communist Party.
Yeah, they call it the Iron Curtain.
Exactly, for a good reason.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, well, we'd love to have you travel. Talk to your congressman about it." And I said, "What the hell?" By now I'm beginning to sober up. What the hell does my congressman have to do with traveling in your country? This isn't a matter of politics. This is a matter of the heart. And I want to bring my parents, because I had been told by the State Department, you never take your mother and father. They could be detained as primary citizens of the Soviet. And so he said, "Speak to the Russian embassy in about 30 minutes. And I thought, oh, hell.
Here we go.
I've already called the Russian embassy and spoken from the window washer to the cook and got niet, 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 niet. This time, the hotlines between Moscow and Russia and the U.S. must have been flashing because when I called, I was immediately connected to the first secretary.
Ooh. Moving on up.
Moving on up is right. And the first secretary just happened to be Lithuanian. Well, of course, I'm fairly fluent in Lithuanian. So we had a good long talk. And I must say, long story short, he became a very good friend in the long run and helped me a great deal. But 48 hours later, my mother and father and I were on a Pan Am flight, God bless them, carrying all kinds of contraband. And they allowed me, I don't know how many suitcases, they were wonderful. And we wound up getting into Lithuania and finding my adorable grandmother, 90-some-odd years old, in a hospital where she had been miraculously moved when I was coming. And, of course, the miracle was that, and why it was a miracle, was that James, Jesus, all of a sudden I did blank on his name. I'll think of him in a minute. Did a story for the AP wire services that went out as I was flying to the Soviet Union, and it hit worldwide headlines everywhere.
Oh, my.
Everywhere. Front pages. Starlet goes to the Soviet Union to rescue grandma, blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that put, Jimmy Bacon was his name.
Okay.
That put the Soviet authorities in a strange position where they had now the eyes of the world focused on what was I doing there. And, of course, I knew nothing about this. So, of course, they were deliciously good to me and gave me permission to not just see my grandmother, but to come back in 6 months when she was able to fly and pick her up and take her home to America.
Oh, my word.
Now, my darling friend, when we got here to the United States, we didn't have jetways then. You walked down the stairs onto the tarmac. She stepped off those steps, dropped to her knees, hit the ground, kissed the ground, saying, "Hello, America."
Oh, my God.
I come to tears every time I think about it. It was so touching to me. And I just keep wanting to say to every young person in America, you don't know how blessed you are.
Yeah.
You don't know how fortunate you are to have freedom to speak and do and say what you please. Please cherish that freedom and don't give it up to anything that smacks of communism.
You know, it's your story hits home so much. I'm Romanian by descent.
Well, no wonder.
Next
Same
door.
Cabbage Patch.
Yeah. And my dad's brother was sent to Siberia and died there.
Yeah.
And so I understand. And I only went to Romania one time with my mom and dad when they were still alive, obviously. And I was angry the first week that I was there because it's like, why are you not fighting back? You know, I don't care about the Soviet Union. I don't care about Russia. Why aren't you fighting back? And then I could see they had no choice.
No.
They had to survive. And when I came back, we got off the plane in New York, and honest to God, now I'm not kidding you, Ruta, I got on my knees and kissed the ground and said, thank God I'm going home.
Oh.
I'm home.
Maybe that's what it takes.
Yeah. You got to see it. Yes.
And feeling and smelling and tasting what that kind of system brings.
Yes. And we were followed in Bucharest because my great-grandfather on my dad's side was a vice bishop in the Greek Catholic Church, and he helped a lot of people during World War II to come to this country. And so they knocked on our door at the hotel. And then we answered the door, and they said, oh, well, we're a cousin of yours. And we looked at him and said, you're not our cousin. We don't know who you are. But we were followed. It was just and one other thing I have to tell you, because, boy, this brings back so many memories. We were walking down the street, and, me, stupid American girl, I was young. I had a camera, and I was going to take a picture of a beautiful building in Bucharest. And I do speak Romanian, not as good as I used to, but still there. And there was a young man in a guard box, and he kind of motioned to me, and he said, "Domnișoara, please," and he said, "Don't take a picture of the building." And I said, "Why? I'm just an American. I'd love to have my family see what these looks like. The building looks like." He pointed up with his finger so that they couldn't see, and there was a machine gun on the third floor. Out the window. And I said, fine, thank you. I appreciate that. And I went my merry way. Those were the lessons that I learned when I was there. And I knew, thank God, that my dad, when he was born here, but taken back to Romania by his parents at 2 years old, and came back here at age 14 alone because he said, I was born in America, I'm going back. And, to see those kinds of, what they suffered to come to this country and how people now take it so much for granted, it's unreal.
It is unreal. It's unreal that people came without the knowledge, without any background, without the educations, and yet everybody in America, if they had no fear of work, survived, and more than survived, they thrived.
Yep, you're right.
And we now seem to offer everybody who comes to America everything, housing and hospitalization and this and that. We want too much. Everybody wants too much and give too little.
Not only want, they expect it.
Yes.
That's what really ticks me off. It's like some people who came over from overseas, they got more rewards than my mother and father, who worked all their lives
all their lives, and paid taxes.
Yes.
And loved this country and worshipped God the way they chose and respected and honored the flag. I can't bear what's going on, and I cannot help but feel we should send everybody on a trip to a Soviet country and see how they feel about all of that good stuff that we know.
And boy, I mean, what a story, Ken. And her grandmother did live, I think, 2 years after she brought her to the United States. But then she turned around and went back to the Soviet Union, and she secured custody of her 18-year-old cousin in 1987. So this woman does not stop. I mean, if she sets her mind at something, she makes it happen. And to me, that is unbelievable. unbelievable what she's done.
That was a real touching story.
It is.
But she is, what a character she is.
Oh, I told you.
I can't imagine sitting around with her in a bar and listening to stories. Because she would do it.
Yeah. And we would be there for hours because she has so many stories.
Right.
And the group that she, in the charitable organization, the Thalians, she was with them, I think, for 55 years and still endorses them, of course. But she used to help the annual ball that they had with the late Debbie Reynolds. And then she's still part of the Thalians as a member emeritus. So she stepped down from the board, but she's still part of it.
Yeah, and I understand her and Debbie Reynolds were very, very close.
Yeah.
That's what I read.
A lot of those star types, behind the scenes, not a whole lot of it in front, but they would, back all these charities, back helping other people. And nobody really knew about that. They only knew them as stars and, envied where they were doing and what they were doing. And they don't know about the real person behind it. That's the reason I always love doing these interviews, because I want people to know about who they are behind the scenes. Not only the PR stuff, not only the movies and the television and all that. I wanted to get them to know who they really were as human beings. And we need so much more of that today, Ken, than ever, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. And, it's being in the industry, the industry has changed. The friendships and all that seem to have gone away,
Cold.
You work on a project and you're done and you're gone. But under the studio system and, it was what you did every day. You went to work and then you went home and you hung out with the same people and you vacationed. You did everything with them. That doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But some of my closest friends are from the industry, like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it was a little bit different. Well, it was a lot different even with radio and television. It was almost like working with your family, like Marion Ross said in one of our interviews. It was like family. It was like a second family, and you used to do things together. And it's not done that way anymore. And I'm sad for young people that are getting into the business that they don't have that camaraderie that you and I over the years did have. But
Right.
I guess just like everything, things change, right?
Right. It was there was a gentleman who moved up to Sacramento, and he came from Columbia Studios in the old days, and he came and he asked for a job, and I said, okay, come work with us. And I remember it around 4 or 5 o'clock, he'd say it's martini time, and then he had brought a barbecue to the studio. And he'd push the barbecue and he'd bring steaks. And he says, this is the way Columbia Studios used to be. He said, we'd be done by 2:30, and it was martinis and barbecue. And,
I love that song. Oh, well, hey, things do change. The other thing that I love talking with Ruta Lee about is that we got into some of the major issues about mental health. And now in many ways, not a whole lot has changed.
Are we just a bunch of wimps now?
We surely are. Little soft wussies.
I don't know where we're going with this. I feel bad for the next generation. They get a plaque because they show up for something. No. Did you ever get a plaque for showing up?
Oh, please. What's going to happen to the idea of competition in this world and may the best man win,
That's what I grew up, and I know you did too.
Yeah, I sure did.
Amazing.
Well, I hope and pray that this generation, which is getting to be so smart and they're so savvy with the computeries and everything else, that somehow some kind of an epiphany happens to everybody, and that they learn this thing about respect each other and respect what God has put on this earth. I can't believe how badly we treat so many things and take advantage of so many things.
Yeah, and for no reason. I mean, there's no reason behind it, no reasoning behind it. And kids today, and I feel like my mother and father now. Kids today.
Yeah.
But, they don't even know anything about civics and geography and history. And we have all the tools to teach them in a very entertaining way, if it has to be that way. But they need to know. If I walk down the street, and it's not only kids, it's young people, too. You ask them, they probably don't even know who their senator is or their governor is. They have no idea.
Well, all you have to do is watch any of the late night shows when they do the man on the street interviews with people.
Yeah.
And it shows you how America is so dumbed down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand it. We've got all knowledge available, whereas before, unless you had a set of encyclopedias, which you had if you were rich,
Yeah.
you didn't have that information, and it's all available now. But it all seems to be hip-hop music and uninteresting young people who don't have that much to offer other than they're cute for a few years. But then what happens?
Well, look what's happening with spring break. We've got a pandemic going on, and it's not over yet. It's not going to be over for quite some time. They can't wait a few more months till we get enough vaccinations done. No, they go down to spring break and crowd the clubs and the beaches. It's the dumbest damn thing I've ever seen.
Oh, what do we do? Drop on our knees and pray that God sends some sort of we got a plague already. Now we need something else.
Yeah, but this one's going to hang around for a while, and we've got to hang together and say, well, think about the other person. If you can't think about yourself, then think about somebody else.
Well, I'm hearing that Canada has a very, very strong set of rules when it comes to if you're coming into the country.
Yes.
That you now have to stay for 3 days in a government-selected hotel, for which you will have to pay $2,000.
Whoa.
And then you are quarantined for 2 weeks at home, and you have an app that you have to check in with all the time, and they can send anybody any time of day or night to knock on the door to be sure that you are there and quarantined.
Wow.
Now, that sounds like communist China, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But is that what it's going to take to calm people down and make them pay attention? I don't know. I hope not, because I don't want to live that way.
No, but we can't just openly say, oh, come on in, everybody come in.
Absolutely, I hear you.
If I were flying now, I want to know that everybody on the plane has a vaccine.
Well, I presume that they're going to be asking for...
I hope so. I mean, I loved cruising. We went on quite a few cruises in our time.
Me too, honey, my favorite thing.
But... not now. Not now, I don't care, even though I am vaccinated. Have you been vaccinated?
Yes, I have.
Yay.
And I wasn't going to. I was one of those that was very hesitant because, for the simple reason, that the FDA has not approved any of the vaccines.
No,
They're
been
all
emergency.
Experimental.
Yeah.
And so we wouldn't dream of taking anything that wasn't FDA approved, and now we're all taking it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did it because I knew that I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to my little place in Mexico.
No.
I couldn't travel. I couldn't do anything without the vaccines. So I did. I did the Moderna. The first one was very easy. I did get a reaction on the second one, but it was livable. I lived through it,
Yeah, I did Pfizer and had nothing, actually, to be honest with you.
Good for you.
A little bit of, fatigue. It was so funny. I had it done on Sunday, and they said, well, you might have some reaction. The next day I felt a little tired, and I said, it's Monday. I feel that way anyway. It's a big deal. How many times in your lifetime, with all the work that you've done and the people that you've worked with, did you just muscle through even though you felt like crap?
Oh, my dear. How many times I was doing, either Molly Brown or Annie Get Your Gun or something with stages of pneumonia.
Oh, my God.
But hell, that you get a shot of B12 in the rear end.
And keep going.
And you keep going, And it's just amazing how when the orchestra strikes up, for the overture, and you're on, how all of a sudden you feel 100% better,
Yep. And believe me, I understand. And I mean, when did you start performing? Probably just as a baby, right?
Yes, I did. I think I came out of the womb singing and dancing. I'm not
Well, the
quite
doctor
sure.
slapped your butt and you never shut up after that, right?
Hit a high note, and that was it. I was performing from the time I was a little girl. And what was very interesting is that my mom and dad were peasant-born Lithuanians who were lucky enough to, first of all, they couldn't get into the United States where everybody knew the streets were paved with gold, and everybody lusted to come here. They couldn't get in. The quotas were closed, and so my father got a job working in the wheat fields of Saskatchewan in Canada.
Oh.
And came over and worked for a year and then brought my mother over, and they settled in Montreal where there was a small but thriving little Lithuanian community. And eventually I was born there.
Oh.
And then, of course, my mother, who had listened to my kindergarten teacher and given me lessons in music and dance and whatnot, excuse me, as a youngster, determined that I was Lithuania's answer to Shirley Temple.
Oh.
Because she didn't know anything about theater, but she knew movies. They would go to the movies. And so she, by hook or crook, God bless her, and a lot of prayer, I'm sure, got us to California, where she knew movies were made.
Oh.
The Hollywood, Florida was closer, but Hollywood, California was the one that counted. And she contacted a marvelous Lithuanian priest that had started St. Casimir's, which is the Lithuanian Catholic parish here in Los Angeles, and he invited them to come out and see California. And, of course, they fell in love because mid-February here the palms were waving hello and the flowers were blooming and the bees were buzzing, and it was just too beautiful for words, whereas we were up to our fannies in snow in Montreal, you know. And anyway, we got here to California, and thank God my mother and my father, who was always a bit of a pessimist about what would become of me, got to see a little bit of my success in Hollywood.
Great.
Which was not fast in coming. Everything is always slow. But Lord knows it's been a wonderful run. I've had a great life here. That sounds like I had no stress or strain, but certainly you do. But thank God I was able to laugh my way through most of it.
I love it.
But it's been such a great life, and I've had the best people in the world to work with, and I write about them all, of course, in my book, and hope that everybody who picks it up enjoys the trip with me. I sort of do a bounce through the rugged road, and hope to take everybody with me on that trip.
Well, I think it's fantastic. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to it. And
I haven't seen it yet either.
Oh, you either? Oh, my gosh. The other thing is, I can't believe we've run out of time. Can I invite you to come back again? We just got started.
Hold on, Mary Jane. Is tomorrow too soon?
Oh, I wish we could do it. I'll get a hold of Harlan and we'll reschedule, okay?
I would be so happy to be with you again. I miss you, my sweet friend, and you think I could forget you? Are you kidding?
You're such a sweetheart.
I love you. I thank you. Thank you for sharing your wonderful listeners with me, because they have to be terrific people to love you. So there we are. We're going to say goodbye for now, and I thank you. May God keep smiling on you. And above all, God, please don't forget us, even though sometimes we're tacky.
Yeah.
Please remember to bless America.
Yeah. Oh, so right. And thank you, Ruta. Now, take good care of yourself.
I certainly will, my friend.
I look forward to our next time together.
Absolutely. I've got to get her back again. And so at first when I saw the book, the publicity they sent me, I thought it was Consider Your Ass Kicked. It's not. Consider Your Ass Kissed. And I'm like, oh, wow.
And Mary Jane,
yeah,
she has the most spectacular website I've seen as far as reminiscing.
Really?
It's RUTALEE.com, RutaLee.com. If you go to that, it is amazing. She is they've documented her life and her friends and her, it's just doing this, I've done probably more homework on this show than I did in college. But
Oh,
yeah, I went to the site and I just couldn't go away. Their biography or filmography, their demo reels, the Walk of Fame. She even has pictures of her Mexican rental unit.
oh, I didn't know that.
You could rent the
Oh,
penthouse in Mexico, and then she has Lithuania, her visiting there, and Live Lee Productions. It just Facebook, the whole thing. Again, it's RUTALEE.com, RutaLee.com.
wow.
For our listeners, take the journey.
Oh, amazing. I got to get a hold of her because I love talking with her because it's like talking, we're in a living room or something with a glass of wine and just kind of sharing. That's the way she is.
Can you imagine taking a cruise with her?
Oh, that would be a wild ride for sure.
Yeah.
But I think we all love her because of the way she is. And, she calls him like she sees him. She doesn't care. And I kind of, I admire that because so many times we, have to bite our tongue. You don't want to say that. You don't want to be criticized. You don't want people coming after you. Not her, not Ruta Lee. I mean, she'll tell it like it is. And if you don't like it, tough. That's just the way it is. So, but
And
anyway,
probably 5 minutes or 10 minutes into the conversation, you'll be friends with her because
yes.
she'll make you her friend and
Mhm.
just take you for that ride.
Love people like that. There aren't too many of those people in the world anymore, Ken, and I'm sorry to say. I wish there were. Anyway, Ken, thank you so much. And again, her book is Consider Your Ass Kissed. And she's just so funny. And to come up with even a name like that, like I said, she calls him like she sees him.
I mean,
Okay. Anyway, Ken, thanks so much for being with me. And that takes us to another Pop Star Talk edition with the great Ruta Lee. But there will be more to come. Thanks to Ken for his thoughts and Greg for his care in our presentation. And I've been so fortunate to have met so many of these wonderful characters and proud to call some of them my friends. So we're going to come back next time for another Pop Star Talk. And I'll delve into my star archive for another great chat with the famous and sometimes the infamous. I got a couple coming up. Till then, I'm Mary Jane Pop. And I want to leave you with the thought that I always do to my friends. Live simply, laugh often, love deeply, and always dare to dream.
Produced by Audavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.